grab your drink and sit down. Listen to the podcast of the strange, the old, the pagan, and the Christian overcoming evil. This is the Grizzly Files podcast.
Welcome. We are here again. What the what the hell do we call this thing again? We are the Grizzly
Files.
Yes, welcome to the Grizzly Files podcast. I promise I haven't been partaking in too much wine. My wife, on the other hand, complete drunkard. Don't trust her.
This is only the Stella Rosa brand.
That's what we're drinking. That.
La Original. It's very small percentage of alcohol, 5.5%.
All I know is the last
Barely do anything.
The last wine she had me drink tasted like bile and turpentine.
It was a Cabernet.
It was Cabernet bile is what it was. A man named Cabernet puked turpentine.
Cabernet space SAUVIGNON.
I was gonna say, you sure you want to spell this right now? This is the internet.
And it was the Saint
Yes, Saint Chateau drank too much Michelle drank too much turpentine and puked it into a bowl of berries and called it a wine. That's what it was.
No, what happened was she was painting and some serpentine spilled.
Serpentine. Welcome. On that note, I am Mr. Grizzly. This is my wife, Mrs. Grizzly here. And we are here, as the intro says, to search out the ridiculous, the paranormal, the strange, while having fun, drinking wine and laughing, and doing a little bit of a Christian perspective. Yes, take that, evangelicals. We do drink wine, and we will drink wine with our communion. Also, take that, Catholics. We're not Catholic. Oh, what are we? You'll never know. Yeah, it's Halloween. I had to make one more reference. Anyway. More. Seriously. No, you're seriously. Today, I don't know.
Below the standard poor.
You're below the standard poor.
Are you saying I'm short?
I'm trying to get started. Yes. I mean, that goes without saying. Okay, you are definitely short. That must have been loud on there. Not taking it out. Sorry. Suck it up, princesses. Prince I. This is why you don't drink and then try to do things. But we do it for you, sir. And Mehmet. Not Mehmet.
Can I talk to you, Mehmet?
No, you may not. Management's busy. But I don't know what I'm going to title this one for sure. I think I'm going to title it something like Supernatural Gang War, Gangland, Territory of Evil, maybe Supernatural Gangland.
The Hood Standoff.
You know what? Territory. We're going to have fun with it. Evil is marking little lines over the map and saying, "This is mine." Holy crap, can you guys hear that? We'll see if you can hear that in the recording, but that's just the cat sharpening his claws all around us. If he keeps it up, I'm going to let the dog in and he can chase him around. He's a gymnast. Nothing like spending Halloween night in a closet, drinking wine, laughing at a cat.
Cellar.
Cat cellar. Wine cellar.
Don't be weird.
Cat cellar. I barely even knew him. So, Supernatural Gang War. We're gonna get into this. We're gonna have a lot of fun. I'm gonna remind you guys, but we're gonna have fun with these. This is not gonna be one of your serious granddad podcasts where the guy comes on with a deep super voice and goes, "And then there I was, walking through the woods, and I saw the red eyes. The red eyes, let me tell you, they were red, and they came after me, and I died. But I still talk to you for somehow because
my eyes were red.
Yes.
Like that wine I just drank.
Red eyes still a thing. We'll get into another one. We're not doing red eyes this time, though.
Or snake eyes.
No, we are in fact doing a lighthouse, a specific lighthouse. Ooh, so you lot in the know might know about this lighthouse, which I realized
You didn't write the name.
I didn't write the name down.
Yes, I had the clipboard.
You took the clipboard.
You left it here
I
so
left
I
the
can read it.
Okay, pause. I'm going to come back into the recording. No, don't actually pause, wife. I'm telling myself to pause, and I will tell you the name
Pause.
of the lighthouse and the island. Go, future self. Ah, power of editing.
The lighthouse you're looking for is the one located on Tevennec Island. Go, past self.
Okay, we're back. Power of Editing Self has told you what lighthouse it is. It is off the coast of France. It is in between England and France, as I understand it. And it was one of the most haunted lighthouses ever. There's a lot of mixed information, too, about this. Like, if you do a modicum amount of research, you'll find all kinds of things. And then you realize that the Kafir, yeah.
No.
Kafir. That's how the Muslims name themselves. Sunni, Kafir. No. But basically, it's an old lighthouse that goes back ages on a really lonely rock, middle of the channel that's really hard to get to. And it has a long history of driving their lighthouse attendants crazy. And lots of bad luck and spirits, lots of voices. One guy's dad, who was bedridden, complained about voices talking to him through the walls and telling him the land's cursed, and then he killed himself with a razor. Good times. I mentioned it's Halloween. No.
No, don't write that into that.
I'll probably do it tomorrow. And I know I'm all over the place with this. So he's not the first guy. There's all these other guys that come before him. All these others, probably two or three.
There's a story about that pregnant woman and the
Yep.
thing. And
Yeah. Another. My wife brings up another caretaker. So
I really hated that
this
part.
this lighthouse burned through caretakers. Like my son's burned through diapers, to be honest, and it is disheartening. Oh my god, my cat has jumped and tried to remove my balls again. Stop it! What is with him in that? This time, if you remember last episode, I joked and said it was, like, oh, it's my balls, and it wasn't my balls. This time it was my balls.
Enough about your balls.
Well, when your woman tells you enough about your balls, it's enough about them. So, speaking of other people with balls, these lighthouses.
They lost them?
Yes, no, so maybe they got weird. So, long line of lighthouse attendants, and it got to the point where they were burning through so many lighthouse attendants that this particular lighthouse, intername future self, power of editing, couldn't get normal-ish. Not that lighthouse attendants are normal people to begin with, especially back in the 19 and 1800s when this took place. I'll give you an exact date in the notes or something. I'm here for the philosophy and the concepts and the stuff. Yo, you want exact dates? There's a zillion other channels that'll give you every date, every name, every person. You're here for the fun stuff, the crazy stuff, the stuff that'll probably... You realize the paper sounds you're making are going to show up on the recording. I'm gonna leave that in just to be a jerk. What did you put in this wine?
Nothing. Came from straight from the bottle.
Oh, what did you put in the bottle?
Nothing. It was sealed.
It was a sealed bottle. So, speaking of seals and lighthouses, transition. Right. It starts out, you have normal-ish people showing up for the lighthouse duty. They're doing something, if I remember correctly, like 6-month intervals, and then there'd be a boat every month or so. And steadily, more and more people started going crazy or demanding to leave the island early and doing things like the one guy committing suicide. And it got to the point where the lighthouse got such a bad reputation that they couldn't get any stand-up individuals to do it, and they got stranger and weirder people as time went on. Which you could argue might hurt some of the witness testimony, but the fact that it got to the point that they couldn't get any semi-lucid lighthouse keepers there.
It should tell you something.
Yeah, sure. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, as a man who used to drive for a living,
I hate that.
You know which places are the most cowboy and the most crap because they pick up all these weird riffraffs and guys who were the rejects from all the other stand-up companies.
And you know why they're the rejects.
And they have a tendency
Push
to
the
pass
reject
these.
button.
If you've heard about, what was it like, this thing where bad teachers are passed around because they can't fire them.
Yeah.
Well, there's only a certain amount of drivers in any town that you can hire for a job because of all these regulations and stuff. So there's actually this funny thing where drivers tend to get like passed around in a big circle. And yes, if you're wondering, a whole lot of the bad ones ended up with Amazon. Not going to point fingers. Most of the ones I ran into actually nice people. But you tend to go a little crazy when they drive you that fat. Might as well have a little guy with a whip behind you saying mush. Anyway, so this particular lighthouse got so bad that they eventually hired a priest to go out and cleanse the place. And he talked, I don't want to put words in the dude's mouth, but he talked about how crazy the place was. Like, it really was oppressive. And I think he had to do it multiple times. And eventually he got so fed up that he crafted several crosses and put them, because this was a small island, at points all over the island, and then cleansed the entire island and slammed the crosses in. And then we don't know what happened after that because the lighthouse was automated after that. Someone got the smart idea to go, you know what? We could keep sending people there to go crazy, or we could automate the place. Huh? Well, as far as I know, the workmen who automated the lighthouse didn't have any complaints, though. So, and it seems like this little cross stake stint did the trick. And, I did skip. I should say the one that bothers my wife a little bit. There was a guy who brought his wife, and she was pregnant, and an entire half the building, like the cottage part, collapsed on top of them while they were trying to give birth. Remember, they're out in the middle of nowhere. They can't go to a hospital. There's no boat to take them. Obviously, there's no boat on the tiny island. Baby survives, mama survives, but needless to say, they got out of there pretty fast after that.
Oh, blame them.
Yeah, no. Lots of bad luck, lots of
I
spirits.
bet the
and
baby
stuff.
came out really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Tense muscles. Whoosh.
So that was a lot of hoo-ha, a lot of fun stuff. But this story, hoo-ha.
You never say that if you're talking about a bird.
No, probably you're just on birth right now, baby mama. And so this story, even though it happened a while ago, this was a government-owned lighthouse. So,
of course it was.
If I remember, it was government-owned. It might have been. Oh shoot! Future self. No, we won't do that again. I forget. Whatever. There's documentation involved. Yes, this incident happened. Yes, the priest came. You can debate on the veracity as much as you want, but then you could debate a lot of things. For example, people don't understand. We only have a small amount of documentation actually written by Aristotle and certain guys like this. So one could argue that those guys didn't exist and they just made up this guy named Aristotle and got pieces of a bunch of other smart dudes and put them together.
He was in the air and he
was startled. No, but that was kind of a side note to say that it was long enough ago that people are going to say what they're going to say. I did a lot of my research for this, kind of went in a lot of different directions. The story is really well known, obviously, since the lighthouse has been automated for a while. There was a guy who went out there and camped there for a certain amount of months. I don't know what happened to him. I assume he's fine. I think it would have been actual front page news story if a guy went to a haunted lighthouse to stay for 6 months and didn't make it back. That probably would be pretty stellar headlines. Probably.
That's very stupid.
So I assume he made it back okay. I didn't look up what happened to him, but there was a lot of other stuff connected that I'll probably talk about in other episodes. For example, this is less verified, but a certain website I found connected to another website that they were referencing.
That's why they called it Link.
Yeah, claims that the local stories talk about this place being basically the home of a Grim Reaper type character, a death type character who's not quite the Grim Reaper, but he's like a precursor to it. And they would claim that this was like his seat, like the seat of death, the seat of a dark god, if you will. Skeletor on a fancy horse, and
No way.
no, okay, this one had a wagon. To be fair,
No,
there's
thank you.
lots of different versions. Ah. So that's interesting, but not as verifiable. So why do I bring up this fun little story? Well, because of its more official status, and I think it highlights very well the concept of the supernatural gang war. See, see, a lot of people miss certain aspects in the Bible and in stories in general. Like when I was growing up, I always used to wonder, what's this whole haunted house thing all about? Why do they chill in houses at all? Like, why does the spirit get tied anywhere? Why would it be a spirit? And in my evangelical mind, also, they were always demons. I might say they could be some other stuff there, but they're still mostly just demons, guys. Really. I mean, you imagine how easy it is to trick you, right? Your dead relative died, and they know that you're kind of into something a little supernaturally, and you really miss them. What better way to convince you to let them inside your house than to show up in the visage of one of your dead relatives?
That's horrible.
In fact, that's where some of the first vampire myths came from.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. I say no, but yes. The term vampire, right, comes from our Turkish area and Transylvania and all the rest like that. There are other vampire myths in Southeast Asia and stuff, but those are really for.
They're weird. I don't.
Yeah, I can't handle flying torsos right now.
I can't do that right now.
Oh my God! I signed up for ghostly territory. No flying torsos.
I signed up about this story, not that vampire story.
The vampires. She's literally hijacking my phone right now. Mrs. Grizzly is not having any of this.
You say that I talk very softly.
Alright. I have been held hostage, and I promise to go into the Southeast Vampiric bozos another day.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So... Don't worry. You should have heard her when I threatened to talk about the Congo giant spiders.
Don't. Remember that picture you showed me of the island of the big crabs? Coconut crabs?
The coconut crabs that probably ate what's-her-face.
Whatever. But my goodness.
Let me leave that line like, yeah, the crabs ate what's-her-face.
My goodness, I tell you that those pictures of the coconut crabs, I didn't know what one was. So, no.
If you want a quick nightmare, and even if you don't believe in the paranormal, the coconut crab exists, and it looks like a spider the size of a dog with the shell of a crab.
It is freaky. I don't know.
There's an island in the Atlantic where so many of them live that the sand moves when they all come out. They sleep during the day, and then they all come out at night, and they'll just rip anything apart they can get a hold of.
Yeah, I'm staying in the mainland, far, far away.
She's hijacking my phone again. So, like those coconut crabs claiming their territory, I would say that something had claimed the island where this lighthouse had been. Right. I'm not saying it was Skeletor, as I will call the entity that the locals allegedly claimed lived out there. But you got to understand the way folklore and stuff works. It's rarely just, we just made something up and that's it. For example, we go to Australia. The Aborigines had no idea what a camel was. They'd never seen one before. They had no stories about them. The British bring camels, introduce them into Australia. And suddenly the Aborigines go, holy crap, there's an animal that we have no stories about. And they start making this crazy story about a pregnant woman on a hump and a rock smacks her in the face and bam, you have a camel. Is that crazy, by the way? And you should say, rightly, that story is bullshit. And you're right. But
Big butt.
the camel wasn't, was it? The story was bull. The camel was real. And they would have never come up with that weird story unless the camel actually existed. So, with most folklore, it's trying to figure out where the, I guess lie isn't the right word, where the narrative is. Because if you think about it, right, whatever this thing or whatever was crazy going out in the island, it's not exactly handing out biographies, like
GPS.
biographies. What's the one? Autobiography. Thank you. I'm like, what's the one where you write about yourself in a prideful manner? No,
that's a Gamma's newsletter.
There's not a spirit like stopping, like, hey, I drove everybody else crazy and slid a few throats, but you, sir.
But first, let me take a selfie.
Here's my autobiography, so you know why I'm a homicidal spirit. No, they just do their thing, and people create stories around them. Maybe if you're lucky, that story might be closer to the truth. But usually, you need to figure out what the core part is. Sometimes it's not the monster, by the way. Sometimes
it's just a drunk maniac.
Right. Sometimes it's like, oh hey, look, the volcano's going off. We're gonna say there's a monster in the middle of it. The constant is the volcano, not the monster, right?
The snout of a dragon.
So in that case though, right, you can see this little connection of something happens, we need to explain it. We're gonna say a monster did it. What you should look out for is when it's, we saw a monster, we can't explain it. Here's what we're going to say it is. Mm-hmm. That's when you realize, according to the folklore pattern, the monster's real and everything else about it's fake. Except for maybe some stuff, right? And so, you may say, we're kind of all over the place. Is it? Yes, I am. But it makes sense. Follow my logic. The island, then, was known to be a hotspot for weirdness and supernatural. And they attached it...
consistencies in the story.
Yeah, and maybe Skeletor thingamabob, maybe a spirit took its shape at some point. I'm not going to say that didn't happen. But since none of the lighthouse keepers ever said that they ran into Skeletor, I'm going to say...
They wouldn't want to say it, even whatever they...
Well, considering that some of them admitted to hearing voices and all this other stuff going on.
Okay.
Right, I would think they would say, if that, yeah, I saw a full-bodied skeleton riding a freaky horse over there one night, George. And remember also, these are lighthouse keepers. They live all by themselves anyway. They don't really care as much about people making fun of them.
They would forget what a woman will look like.
Not if they brought their own. One guy
they brought their own.
One guy came. He was married. So,
yeah, look what happened to her.
Right. In this case, it seems to me Skeletor was attached to the island because high strangeness, weird stuff going on, and they went. It's kind of like calling it Devil's Pool or something, right? El Diablo está allá is the, devil this, demon that, hell this, hellscape, right? Death Valley, if you will. That one's more on the nose for important reasons, and obviously it's because there's a desert,
and all that.
Right? And well, I mean, with
who knows? Maybe there's something else that we don't know about. They didn't want to tell us.
Not all ghost towns have ghosts. Oh my god. No. So.
Damn. Why?
Oh god. Well, wow. You know what? I think they'll complain. The one guy, if you're listening to this, you're probably right. We probably should get into it more fast. But this is fun. This all comes together to explain the point. Right? High strangeness. In this case, the high strangeness is the constant. Skeletor, the monster, was made to explain the high strangeness, and the Skeletor was probably just fake. Otherwise, more witnesses probably would have said, I saw Skeletor. And we'd be having a very different conversation, though probably along the same point. But what's the constant? The constant there is the high strangeness, the voices, the freaky stuff happening, people going insane. One could argue possible possession with the guy who slit his own throat, especially. There was plenty, I believe there was more than one lighthouse keeper who had personality changes while they were on the island.
Bipolar.
Which is, well, as in
Multi-person
they were normal.
Oh, more multi-person. Okay.
No, as in they were normal, and then, or normal is the kind of guy who goes to lighthouse, but like they changed by the time they left. They were acting different, and not that doesn't always mean that you're possessed. Don't get me wrong, but it points to it. So what does this have to do with territory? Well, why this island? We can also kind of safely say that it wasn't, for instance, in a demon possession scenario, you have to ask yourself, okay, hey, was the person who is trying to get away from a haunted house and the spirit seems to follow them, maybe it's not that the spirit was in the haunted house, but it was they were possessed or attached the whole time, and it just only manifested after a little while of them moving. Right? You gotta, in some cases, I'd say a lot of cases, people don't realize it's not so much a haunting as much as a demon possession situation, which is probably even more gaslighting if you think about it, because then it can really mess with your head and nobody else knows what's going on. But, right? These things are crafty. Demons are crafty. They're old. They know what messes with people's heads. They know you go, especially in a society where even me just talking about this, you'll get ridiculed like nobody's business. I mean, just imagine talking about this like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
right. Now there's whole genres about it on YouTube, and the grifters are out in force to take advantage of it, right? Because the spirituality has been real, and that people have been experiencing it, and they've been dealing with it, and it's just now gotten to the point where people have broken through this cultural zeitgeist, which was not accidental, by the way. But if I sat here and talked about everything, we'd be here all day, baby. Night, probably a whole week.
I don't want to be here all that long.
We already can't talk about the vampires, so So
it doesn't help that I lived in Southeast Asia.
No, Well, those ones specifically were some islands you weren't around. And don't worry.
I know.
Don't. I know. The ones you should have been worried about were the weird giant cannibalistic spirits that supposedly haunt the temples.
I know. There's temples everywhere.
Dimples everywhere.
Temples. Yeah.
Anywhere.
At least they didn't say there were nipples.
Oh, God. Well, I assume the giants have nipples. No one said they didn't.
I don't. No, don't. They never said if they had balls or not.
Actually, yes, they have in certain stories. Awkward. Well, I mean, when you're that big, you're naked. I mean, it's kind of hard to hide,
That's what they call naked.
Side story. This isn't a Bigfoot episode, but yes, I have heard stories about guys blowing Bigfoot's balls off because they were big and they were like doing the monkey thing. Like, like I'm big, I'm gonna get you, and the guy with the gun goes and shoots his balls. Monkey Man did not die, but ran away in pain, destroying much of the forest as he ran. Yes, there are several stories of them saying, yeah, definitely he...
Oh, boy.
I didn't expect to bring up balls multiple times in one episode. I really should limit that to like once an episode.
Or some without mentioning it. Like, we need to have like a... I don't want to say that.
No, you see, now you challenged me. I'm going to have to bring up balls at least one time in each episode so everybody knows how high class this is going to be.
I'm bringing wine to this, and what happens?
I bring down the common denominator. That's okay. So, wow. I need to get to the actual part. So, let's get into more of some of the biblical perspectives around this. So, first one I kind of want to bring up, right, is Was his name Layman? Dude. Power of editing.
The name you're looking for is Naaman, not Layman. Naaman. Going back to you.
And then we're back. This guy was a Syrian officer way back during Elijah's day in Israel and all the rest. And if you don't know what that means, you're not biblically literate at all. Basically, there's a time period in early Israel where a prophet named Elijah is contending with a large empire known as Syria. And this Syrian officer, though, was well known for being a good man, but he had leprosy. This was before leprosy had an easy cure. And so he had an Israeli slave. The slave girl tells him, hey, if you would only talk to this guy, is Elijah, not Elisha, if I remember correctly. Yes, Elijah. That you should go to him. You can get healed. God is good, all the rest. So he goes his way. He has all this stuff ready to go. Elijah sends his servant out to meet him. He doesn't even meet the guy. And he says, look, the God says, go bathe 7 times in the Jordan River. And this is actually important. Go bathe 7 times in the Jordan River, like dunk yourself, baptize yourself 7 times, and you'll be healed. The officer is obviously insulted that the prophet didn't come out to talk to him himself, and is at first saying, I might as well just go back to Syria and bathe in the waters there that are cleaner. Jordan River is pretty muddy even today, as I understand it. But his attendants convince him to bathe in the Jordan. And so he does it, and he comes out, and he's cleansed, and he's healed. After he's healed, Elijah does come to talk to him. Excuse me. And in there, he says, I know the God of Israel is the real God. Now will you take my gifts? Elijah says no, and blah, blah, blah. And eventually we get to the meat of the matter, where he says, I will praise only God from this point on. The officer, please give me basically dirt. He asked for giant bags of dirt from Israel so that he could properly worship God in Syria. Now that seems a little weird. Why does this dude want dirt? Well, the answer is, especially in this time period, God had claimed the territory of Israel. The land itself was his. To worship him properly, you needed to be in Israel. Hence, the dirt, the territory marked out. God says, this is my inheritance, or my inheritance, right? This plays out in later aspects where King David, for example, complains to Saul that he can't worship properly because he's been exiled and Saul's trying to kill him. Saul was the king at the time, blah, blah, blah. David wasn't king yet. And this is because territory is important in the spiritual world. We have other parts where, like, Paul will talk about principalities. We talked about this in the last episode. Different layers of power and influx, and they actually have spheres of influence, if you will. The really bad Whamma Jamma Watcher type entities control entire nations and empires and all the rest, and peoples. And we have a really interesting look at this if we skip on ahead to a very fun story, one of my favorite ones in the Bible, where Daniel has been praying for something crazy like 40 days, 30 days, some crazy. He's been fasting and doing all this other stuff. And he goes down to the river, a bunch of other people there, and an angel appears to him. A really bad Watcher Whamma Jamma pops up. Nobody else sees it, but everybody else feels an immense earthquake and a flash of light, and everyone's freaking out and running around, but he can see the angel. So, the angel says, when you first started praying, I came to you. Or I was coming to you, but the Prince of Persia, but I was waylaid, if you will, by the Prince of Persia, so a prince entity, the principalities, remember, that Paul talks about. And he contended with me. And then your prince, as in the spiritual prince of Israel, came and aided me and fought the Prince of Persia. And now take my message. Huh? Daniel. The book of Daniel, I believe.
No, was it?
Oh, Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, Michael. But he refers to, I forget if he uses his name or not. And so, And then he says, I have to go back to help fight the Prince of Persia. And then he leaves. This is an interesting little thing. It's a view of how the spiritual world works. Even under God's command, he puts angels and, shall we say, special sons of God, powerful entities in charge of regions and peoples, right? Notice something interesting here is it's not just the land, it's also the people, right? Because Daniel wasn't in Israel when this happened, he was in Persia. This means that Michael, or if he was named that, I forget, his angel was contending for him against the Persian prince who was in charge of the land and saying, you can't come into my territory, he's mine. The Michael prince knows he's one of the sons of Abraham. He's my responsibility, and they're duking it out in response. Now, this, in my opinion, puts a very big explanation around why places get haunted. Like I pointed out, a lot of hauntings are probably just demon possessions that people misconstrue as hauntings. There's probably a lot of hauntings that start out as hauntings and then turn into demon possession as well. Lots of things. And you gotta understand with possession, it's not always like a full, like, crawling up the walls.
Yeah, it was Michael.
Yeah. It's not always a full crawling up the walls kind of thing. Sometimes it's just a hitchhiker. Right. Other times it's an influencer. Sometimes they're just trying to kind of sneak in and mess with you any way they can. And it's all about what they're allowed to do and what you let them do. So, going back to our original story, we can see that the priest was having a lot of trouble, right? He was contending and he was basically doing a spiritual battle over that territory, that island. And eventually he had to go to the extreme measures of literally physically marking God's territory.
Mm-hmm.
Like a gang marking up the walls with their graffiti, but more holy and quite aesthetically pleasing, with the crosses and then praying over it and casting everything out. Now it's important to mention here, and this is where a lot of people get messed up. Just because you drive them out doesn't mean they're just going to stay away. Doesn't mean they're just going to stay away. Right. You got to think of... It's kind of a funny example that I wrote down here. I play this silly video game called Foxhole, where every bullet, everything has to be made by the players, and territory, it's massive. And we're in this thing now.
It's like a tug of war. Big tug of war. Where
we take we take a base, and then they take it back, and we take it, and then they take it, and then we take it, and they take it. Because of the way the game's built,
it's like tag, basically.
Yeah, defenses take a long time to build, so something that's recently taken can easily be counterattacked and taken. And I don't know if you know this, but I can't be on a video game 24/7 to protect everything.
No, you got a Wi-Fi.
It's like I have a real life or something.
It's like you have a family.
I mean, gosh, I love those punks. But the other thing too, probably an easier example for most, is like World War I. They take a trench line, they take a whole hill, and they lose it 2 months later. Mm-hmm. And that, in a way, is what spiritual combat is like. It's all about that tug of war. Now, some people don't experience any of it. Most people actually do experience it, but they don't realize what they're experiencing. Remember, if revealing themselves to you is going to push you towards God, they're going to do everything they can not to reveal themselves, or reveal themselves in such a way that you're pushed towards witchcraft or sorcery or some Buddhist stuff. That's their goal, right?
Or even people who have kind of gotten out of it, they eventually get back. Yeah.
And so, what we're trying to get out here, all right, is evil is in the real estate business just as much as it is in the soul state business, if you know what I mean. And
it makes sense.
Yeah. If you look at the Bible and how it works, right? Jesus refers to the devil as the god of this world. So what does that mean? That means his rebellion to God gained him the world, this physical earth, whatever. The Watchers, if we both take the Book of Enoch and hints throughout the Bible itself as well, come to the conclusion that the Watchers came down to. I just realized I didn't explain what the Watchers were. Okay, Watchers.
You did last time.
I did. Last time I explained it, but we're going to go over it again. Watchers are basically these principality spirits. So that, remember in Daniel, those two spirits duking it out over territory? Watchers were in charge of people groups and land, right? So Michael was, well, though it's also more complicated than that, because some spirits have been physically called Watchers, and they're called Watchers like that. They go to that translation because they're supposed to watch over, like God puts them in charge of a people to guide them, kind of thing. And if they go down a bad path, it's kind of that Watcher's fault. Oops.
Because even the angels were judged too.
Yeah.
So.
Which is an uncomfortable
Which is
side point
very...
that angels aren't perfect. But well, so another. So, what were the rebellious Watchers doing? So, if you remember in the last episode, they're the sons of God who mixed with man were rebellious Watchers. What were they rebelling for? What was their goal? Their goal was to take Earth. They made giant children and magical children, if you will, magically delicious leprechauns.
Oh, stop.
I think they are.
The small hats?
Yeah, and they... Except leprechauns are big hats. Little people, big hats. So their point, what, right? If the earth is our inheritance as sons and daughters of Christ and God, then the Watchers created the giants and these things, not because they just want to have sex with women, though there's plenty of that, I'm sure. It's because they wanted to create a rival human race to inherit the earth and then claim it for themselves. That's like the whole goal and the whole plan. That was their big sin, trying to claim the earth for themselves and their children. More specifically, if we go into Jesus's parables, we have the story of the bad tenants, right? This is the one where there's a vineyard and there's workers there, and the owner of the vineyard goes on a really long trip, right? And the workers rebel and they take the grapes and everything, right? And they don't give it up, and he sins. He sins the servants. The servants get beat up and all this other stuff, right? And then they say, then he finally sends his son, and they go, "Let's kill his son, and we can claim the inheritance of the land." That's referring to the Watchers. You can't. Well, some of it was definitely the Israelites in that reference, right? But the Israelites never went, "Ooh, let's kill Jesus Christ so we can claim the territory." No, right? They didn't think of it that way. So who did think of it as killing Jesus Christ means we get the vineyard, we get the garden, we get the Garden of Eden, we get this place? Who thinks that way? The Watchers think that way. The devil thinks that way. That's why they did it. So, all over the place. We've got a lot of theology in there. But I want to quickly... Have anything to say before I...
No, not really.
Okay.
No.
Well, I got a little excited. Some of you may say
It's kind of funny how we have like a really long start, and then we get done really quickly.
Well, that's the thing. To be honest, guys, I could probably give you a condensed 10-minute video of a lot of the meat of the matter, but you wouldn't get a lot of the interesting details, a lot of the side stories, a lot of the jokes. Those are funny. Yeah, I'll laugh at my own jokes. Balls. Anyway, and so on, right? I'll probably make some more condensed videos for YouTube, blah, blah, blah.
Apparently YouTube has this.
This is a very interesting new policy now that I refuse to follow because I'm a rebel, yo. But we'll get back to the main point. Well, one of the main points. And this is that tug of war, right? The more you become aware of spiritual matters, and especially the more that you turn to God to protect yourself, the more likely you're going to run into flak. You're going to run into the enemy. Because the more you follow God, the more likely you're going to anger his enemies. And yes, this does mean that they're after your soul, but they're also after your land and your children and everything. Right? They can taint land. Like, it's interesting. We brought up a lot of Native American stuff last time with the Wendigo.
Mhm.
We could bring up something like skinwalkers and witches, right? It's interesting. Oh gosh, dang it! How many times did I cough in one podcast? But that they're very active around Indian reservations, and they kind of stuck around there. It's like the land itself gives them power in some way, or they own it in some way that we don't understand. And so, part of our part as Christians is to take what, like, if we go back to Genesis, one of the first commandments God gives us is be fruitful and multiply. But right after that, it's take dominion over the earth. Right? Some translations will just say take possession. No, it's take dominion, as in this is your domain, and essentially it means bring the entire earth into the kingdom of heaven. Like, most people don't catch that the Garden of Eden was only a small section of creation, just a small garden, like the center of God's power.
Like it was a big test kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well,
Well, more than
you could also think of it as a beachhead.
Mhm.
God puts a center of his power in his new creation, and he plans on using humanity, his sons, to bring the entire earth into
the Garden of Eden.
making everything like the Garden of Eden. You know, it's the difference between, and I'm stepping on another podcast toes right now, let me tell you. A well-maintained garden, and then the wild beauty of the wilderness, right? You may like the wild beauty of the wilderness, but you're not gonna like it when the grizzly like snorts next to you and then eats your liver. By the way, they eat you alive. Like, they don't bother to kill you first.
Oh gosh.
It's not pleasant. Okay, bears no fun. No, I don't like bears. Bears don't like me. Anyway,
We'll leave it at that.
And by bears, I mean physical bears. I'm not talking about a certain group of people who are fun and like to make stuff.
I'd be very careful how you word that.
It's the bear necessity, isn't?
Your bare necessity.
Whatever. The group of people who call themselves the bears. I like them. They're cool. They believe some silly stuff sometimes, but I like them. Actual hairy, well, I mean, some of them are pretty hairy too. You know, the animal. Some of you act like animals. I know who you are.
Yeah, those are called furries.
Not that type.
Oh, the other one. Oh, shut up.
I was going with like an animal on the gun or something, woman. This is, the later this goes, the worse
The
our
worse
jokes
it's
are
gonna
getting.
it's how I cope.
I just wonder what she would have done if we started talking about vampires.
I would put.
Boy, I will take your phone hostage. Anyway, back to, right. That was God's first commandment for us, and it's very telling that his enemies basically twisted and copied that commandment for their children, which means 90% of those spiritual entities and things out there, whatever they are, just have very unholy daddies, and they've been placed
Really bad daddies.
evil daddies, and they've been placed as a result between us and God's goals, and they will always be against us. This is why they're always trying to take stuff. This is why they always try to push you out. Like, if you look at a lot of, out of nowhere here, Dogman stories, for example, it's a whole lot of driving you from the land.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, like, there's plenty of stories of them killing too, but the main point is it's usually scaring the crap out of you till you leave. And if you don't leave, they might actually do something more than that. But the point is, it's all about claiming the land with them a lot of times. So, if you ever do get into this situation, right, a problem that a lot of people run into is, let's say they do find some pastor or priest or someone who's willing to help them, who can help them, who's connected to God and God works through them to cleanse the land, or even them briefly. If they don't deal with the sin in their lives and they don't become better Christian and use the tools that God's given us to defend themselves, things are going to get worse. And they always do. Jesus brought up a very specific example where a spirit's driven out of a man, and then for a certain amount of years he's walking around and the spirit's roaming the earth. That's another fascinating.
It's creepy.
And then it comes back to the man who comes back to the house where it was driven out and sees that it's swept and clean, and he comes and grabs 7 more of his kind, and they all do it, and now the haunting and the possession is 7 times worse. You have to build your defense, drive out the evil. You also have to confront it, by the way.
Yeah.
And then
Change.
and then you have to change your behavior, because
repent.
sin will block your connection to God, and we don't have to be afraid of these things because God and Jesus Christ have won, right? They're more powerful in the end, but your sin breaks your connection to God and thus breaks your lifeline. Think of yourself as a diver in the Mariana Trench in a fancy new dive suit that can go all the way down, and you're there on a purpose and a mission, and your tube, right?
Or in some cases, your little submersible.
Ooh, submersible. Right. Oh no.
Yeah.
No. We're not going to
Scuba
Titanic. Down.
No, this is a submarine. The little submarine. Remember the submersible where the millionaires were on? The small one?
Yeah, that's what they were going to see
Oh,
the
that's-
Titanic. Why?
I thought you were talking about the big boat. I was mentioning. Oh, shut up.
Wow. And dead billionaires later, so. Never get on a submarine controlled by a crappy controller made by a third party. Least they could have done was get a $50
That's why they call
controller.
it a third party.
Like, at least get the nice controllers for holy cow. So, and as a PC Master Race man now, what's wrong with joysticks, yo? Come on. Anyway. So, think of yourself as that diver, and every time you sin, a little fish comes up and nibbles on your air tank.
Piranha?
Piranha, well, or what are the? They're not pufferfish. What are those freaky things with the big teeth and the light?
Oh, I think they're not piranhas.
No,
There's some. Oh, I know what you mean.
you can't. You guys know what it is. It's
A
the
light
freaky fish.
A light fish.
It's the freaky light fish, apparently, wives.
Lamp fish.
No.
Lamp head. I'm
Moving.
too shady for you.
Moving on, woman. So, right, you. There are tanks, right? You won't instantly die if that connection gets severed, but now you're at the mercy of the elements. Your lights go off, you have no idea what's going on, and the fish around you, the Leviathan, if you will, can have their way. And my chair is so squeaky. I really hope that's not on the recording.
No, it's the cat. The cat's
No, it's every time I move.
No.
Do I have to prove my point here? Gosh, dang it. So, another way to look at it is, if you're trying to take a fortress, do you attack the front gates where they're double walled, triple walled, have cannons everywhere and are going to blow you up? Or do you attack the smaller wall, the weak point? You always go for the weak point. Right? So, be vigilant. We all sin and have fallen short of the glory of God, but deal with your sin. I can't tell you the number of stories. Like I have like a bingo chart in my mind. I should like write this out and
Play bingo by yourself.
No, I should make a bingo game for when you're listening.
Yeah, like that's gonna show.
Like, I'm gonna give it out for free, woman. And it's like a haunted bingo game. So when you're listening to a creepy story, you can like mark off the list. Oh yeah, recently divorced woman, single mother, went to a new house.
Who's gonna be binge? Never mind.
There's all kinds of bingos going down those, if you know what I mean-os.
Bingo dingo. That's what it'd be called. Bingo dingo.
Woo!
Because it'll go ding 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 ding.
Speaking of
No.
bingo? No, okay, we're just moving on. So, right? Ask. Well, Rarely, it's fine. Ask nicely, and I will make the spiritual
No.
bingo game. It'll be hilarious. So every time you listen to a haunted thing, you can see if you win bingo. Is there a Ouija board involved? Is there?
No, thank you.
Oh, haunted Indian burial grounds for the win, baby.
That right there. That's
Connected to what we just talked
It's
about.
a bullseye.
Well, bullseye. Oh, Speaking of dead people, no, you guys have been awesome. I don't know if I should be drinking wine and doing these, and I don't care. We're gonna have fun.
Maybe I will be the one drinking.
Just you.
And you. Stop.
What are you talking about? Fun. Anyway, have fun. Pray properly. And remember, it's as much about your land as it is about your soul.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, they go after your soul because you're between them and the land they want. Other ways, it's the other way around. So, think of it that way. You guys are awesome. We'll see you again. I do like, subscribe, the shares. Go to the blog. I need to write in the blog more. I do fiction books. You can find me on ArtTunes under RpGrizzly, but oh wait, I don't have. It's glitching, so
That's
Archaven doesn't like my author profile. But you can go. I will put
The glitch don't like it. They like it, but the glitch don't like
The
it.
4 titles are The Diary of a Post-War Pirate, the
Tunnels of War.
Tunnels of Woe. Thank you very much. Chronicles of the Hunting, Liquidation, and the Adventure, Hunting, and Liquidation Committee. There was the Chronicles. Excuse me. The Chronicles of the Adventure, Hunting, and Liquidation Committee, and Wolfren the Avenger, the Night Avenger.
If you want to see all of them in one place, go to the Robin P. Grizzly Files at blogspot.com.
Which I will leave in the description.
Click on the sidebar and you'll see everything.
You'll see little pictures. They're awesome stories. They're a good time. I need to update them. Life is hard sometimes. Be looking for those books when I also write them out. But for now, you can get a lot of the first chapters for free.
And what happens with life is hard, you just pray harder.
Yeah. Oh, and also, if you guys, I will leave a link in the description if you want to buy David and the Three Bears, which is my kids' book, teaching your kids to trust God, be brave, and not to steal. Good times. All right.
Alright.
I'm signing out of here, man.